So thank you and welcome back to our formal proceedings. We're going to get into our second panel discussion, and then we're going to conclude the day with a kind of an engagement piece that our partnerships director, Daniel Rex, will be running, and then Matthew Aitchison will close off the day for us. So we're going to spend the next hour focused on a range of presentations that are focused on our two other meta themes, which are industrialization and digitalization. And as a reminder, the other two meta themes are sustainability and people practices and culture. So we'll start off with the two industry partner presentations, and I'll introduce those two speakers, and then we'll switch over to the academic project leads for three other presentations, and then have another panel discussion. So please prepare yourselves with any sort of audience questions for when we get to the Q&A. So I would like to firstly introduce Stuart Lyons. Stuart is the Senior Manager of the Digital Build Program at Office of Projects Victoria, and he will present the Digital Build Program, which was established as part of Office of Projects Victoria to support the implementation of modern practices, including digital engineering and offsite construction in Victorian government capital delivery projects. Following Stuart will be George Konstantakis, who is the General Manager at Sumitomo Forestry, Australia, and he'll present Lighthouse Project 6, which is the Melbourne East apartment development, which is the Lighthouse project that I mentioned earlier, is our first cab off the rank and blazing the territory there. In George's presentation, he'll speak to the project and how it will document and benchmark an offsite timber pilot project in order to quantify the benefits and to recommend improvements. There are research streams involved in that project, including DFMA, life cycle analysis, building performance, and market perception to holistically demonstrate the value of an offsite timber approach. So can I first welcome Stuart?
I'm going to talk a little bit about what one of the initiatives that government is doing in the digitalisation space. So I'll talk a little bit about the Digital Build Programme and just highlight some of the key initiatives that we've got going on. It's not all of them, but it's only 3 minutes I've got to present, so I've got to keep this nice and short. So Office of Projects Victoria, we are essentially the engineering group within the Department of Treasury and Finance. We provide a lot of independent advice to the Treasurer around how projects are performing, doing reviews, essentially portfolio oversight. The other part we do is identify, analyze, and really identify systemic improvement, opportunities for improvement, identify where there's efficiency gains, where we can improve processes. The really exciting thing is, because we're part of central government, the opportunity to if we identify something, even if it's only a saving of 1%, we can roll it out across all the agencies and all the departments. And that's where the really exciting part of where we are right now. It feels really, really exciting to be part of that. So that's across the 8 or 9 different departments, and obviously the various projects, in particular the big build projects, which I'm sure you're all well aware of. In terms of what the Digital Build Programme, so the Digital Build Programme was essentially built off the back of something which was launched by OPV called the Victorian Digital Asset Strategy. I'm really hoping there's a lot of people in this room who are involved in BIM and digital engineering who've heard of it, so it's good to know. Off the back of that successful launch of that document, that kind of strategy, the Digital Build Programme was funded to essentially implement VDAS, or the best practice that's represented in VDAS. To date, we've done a number of initiatives and projects and launched a number of documents that I really just wanted to quickly highlight. Essentially, the Digital Build is a transformation program identified through 3 or 4 key pillars. I like to call them levers personally. These are levers that, as a central agency, we can pull. So one of the first things we can do is policy, set that direction, set what's best practice, set those minimum standards for digital practice on our projects. One of the other things we can do is a legal and commercial side of things. We make sure that contracts are set up to be collaborative, to encourage innovation, to really drive collaboration in that using digital technology and processes. Capability, obviously, you can't just set a policy and define what you need without upskilling people, without upskilling the training and identifying where there might be gaps where there needs capacity or capability uplift. So we've got a number of training that we're developing at the moment to deliver to a lot of the government agencies and departments aimed at a number of different levels and improving value. So one of the other parts is benefits. So there's a lot of good data on benefits out there of digital, but most of it's coming out of Europe, most or the US. There's not actually a lot of region-specific data. So we've got a number of pilot projects underway to capture those benefits and capture the real, real tangible benefits, the actual, not just expected benefits, but the actual benefits, and then to share that across government, across industry within the Victoria region, obviously within Australia as well. So we think that's really exciting. So just to highlight a couple of just the key things there. So we talked a little about the strategy. For those who've not heard of it, it's essentially sets out best practice for information management for digital engineering and BIM being applied on projects, in particular capital delivery. Its idea is to improve planning, design, delivery and maintenance of government assets. So when the asset is handed back to the asset owner or operator, they've not only got a physical asset, they've got that digital asset or digital twin, was one I'm sure familiar, I've heard that buzzword. And it really is that next step of adopting a modern approach, a modern consistent approach to delivering. The digital asset policy was fully endorsed and supported by the Treasurer in September of 2021. And that really sets the benchmark. That defines minimum requirements for digital practice across all stages of a project's lifecycle and the asset's lifecycle. It's got 3 levels of requirements depending on the complexity and the complexity and value of the project, and those they then define a certain level of requirements. And then just very quickly, another area we are tackling is offsite construction. I think I heard there's a few offsite construction presentations already taking place. So we've also released some guidance, which is really aimed again at delivery agencies, improving their ability to evaluate what type of offsite construction might be most appropriate, and also to what might the best procurement approach might be. What we've just finished, and this is due to go live very, very soon, is a bit of a commercial review as well to look at current standard construction contracts. Most of the contracts used by government here in Victoria were written about 10 or 15 years ago and don't really accommodate for modern methods of construction. So we developed a number of model clauses that can be inserted into these standard contracts to improve collaboration and make it easier to bring on board off-site manufacturers to supply and install components on your site. And we've just had a refresh of our website, so feel free to jump on if you want to know, like to know more about some of these artifacts that we have.
So we're very proud to be part of the very first Lighthouse project with Building 4.0. This provides a unique opportunity to be actively involved in a real life project. So the involvement from the university is not just a research project, but it's also about exchanging ideas so we get a better product at the end of it. So we're going to be capturing the data, we're going to be analysing the data, we're going to be feeding in learnings as part of the whole process. So this is a real collaboration between industry and the university, and we're very proud to be part of this Lighthouse project. As part of this project, we have 5 research streams. So a big part of prefabrication is obviously the design-led process, so that we're an integrated design component of this design. Traditional design and construct processes means that a lot of the design and efforts is done by the builder, but what we're doing here is we're bringing that all up front as part of the design group, and we'll be designing the building up to about 80% and then handing it over to the builder to do more an install process as opposed to a traditional design and construct process. We'll also be analysing the life cycle assessment of the building performance. So a big part of this project is to convert what was traditionally a reinforced concrete apartment building. And traditionally, most of these buildings, once you start to get out of the single dwelling homes or the townhouse style homes, they are built out of concrete. And concrete represents the second most used material on the earth. So it accounts for about 8% of greenhouse gas emissions. And there's about 30 billion tonnes of concrete used every year, and that amount is increasing. So this is a way to try and offset the amount of greenhouse gases with using different technologies and different processes. We'll also be analysing the building performance from an acoustics, vibrations, air quality and performance point of view. We'll be conducting some design and market perception. So these are buildings and these are luxury apartments we'll be selling to as a build to sell component to the market. So we'll be researching how they live in these and use these buildings and get a perception in terms of how they perform from a real life case study point of view. And on the other side, we'll be assessing the digital component of the design in terms of how advanced a digital level we get to on this project, using what is largely traditional consultancy personnel out in the industry. So problem statement, as we know, the productivity in the building sector is really lagging behind other sectors. And over the last 20 years, there's been about a 10% improvement in productivity. Now, the promise of prefabrication has always brought about a more efficient way to build, but that hasn't always been realized. And I think this project will be a good way to showcase, why aren't we getting those productivity benefits? Why isn't it being used more widely? And by having the actual students involved throughout the consultancy briefing, they're actually sitting in all the meetings, they're involved in all the decision-making processes. They can see where all the issues are, and that will be documented and reported out as part of this project. Another part of why Sumitomo Forestry is involved is around the decarbonisation. So a big part of our strategy is to utilise timber to decarbonise the globe, and we're about converting what is traditionally concrete buildings into timber buildings to try and offset some of that 39% carbon emissions that's generated from the building sector. So they're the two big problems that we want to address, and this project is about highlighting, how successful this process can be. From an industrialised building approach, we'll be tapping into the existing market. So we're working with a prefabricated building supplier, Timber Building Systems in Dandenong, who developed a mid-rise closed panel structural systems. So the basement will be traditional concrete, and then from the basement upwards will be a prefabricated CLT timber and TBS wall system, which we'll be installing on site, and then the building will be finished off traditionally. So we'll be following that whole process right from concept design right through to delivery and handover to the customer. The project's located in Melbourne East. There's 14 luxury apartments, so 2 bedrooms and 3 bedroom apartments. Pricing ranges between 1 million to 2.5 million. So they are top end apartments. So they're going to be, expecting a very top level finish from clients. There's 3 stories and a basement car park with 24 car spots and electric vehicle charging at every point. It's an all electric building with 7.5 stars NABERS average rating, and there'll be an 11 kilowatt PV system on the roof. So we're looking to not only reduce the embodied carbon, which we expect to reduce by about 40%, but also make an impact on operational carbon by having a very efficient building as well. And the beauty of this building is that it'll be built and delivered throughout the duration of the CRC, so I'll be able to follow the whole process through from start to finish. And the other benefits is it's within walking distance to the Monash University. That's just a side benefit. It wasn't done on purpose, by the way. It's just by coincidence. Just a couple of project streams that will give you a bit of a flavour. I don't have enough time to run through them all, but interesting that they're using the Lessing's conceptual framework, which is a Swedish model. I guess Sweden's seen as the leaders in prefabrication. They've really been pushing prefabrication over the last 30, 40 years and really are the most advanced in this space. But when I look at the model, I've come from the automotive industry. It's very, very similar to the way we design and engineer vehicles. So it is very much about a design-led process, having the suppliers work together with you, a lot of planning and analysis throughout the whole process. But there's also wrapped around a continuous improvement process as well. And in terms of BIM maturity, and I've seen automotive go from 2D actually hand-drawn drawings all the way to 3D drawings where you can do all your crash testing virtually. The building industry feels like it's still at the very front end of that, so it's still got a long way to go, but it is heading towards the right direction. But we're sort of at that level 1 and 2, if you're lucky, BIM maturity level. But I think as this industry grows and they see the benefits, the plan is to move towards a more prefabricated and digital approach. I hope that gives you a bit of a flavour of what we're doing, and we'll take some questions later.
Thank you very much, George and Stuart. So now we're going to shift to our three project lead presentations. First, we'll have Dr. Stephen Pasalis, who's a research fellow and lecturer at QUT. He's going to present project number 46, Data Analytics for Structural Fiber Resource Optimization. It's a project that uses data analytics approaches to investigate relationships in the production database provided by our partner, Hyne Timber. Following Stephen will be Alireza Chinafouche, who is a research fellow at the Future Construction Lab at the University of Melbourne. He will present Project 49, Innovative Steel, Timber, and Concrete Composite Strongfloor, which is being carried out with CRC partner VIRIDI. The project aims to develop a novel structural flooring system covering mid to long spans. Research priorities include minimizing material use, providing the possibility of fast and modular construction, reducing manufacturing and construction costs, improving space quality and aesthetic look, as well as complying with requirements of the BCA and Australian standards, I should note. And then finally, Dr. Rachel Cooper, who is a lecturer at Monash and a member of the FutureBuilding Initiative, otherwise known as the FBI Lab, will present Lighthouse Project 3, which is working with the National Centers for Healthy Aging Independent Living Lab. The Living Lab will be a piece of research infrastructure within the NCHA's simulated environment stream, and Rachel can explain what that means. The aim of the lab is to support research related to activities to deliver the National Center for Healthy Aging vision and aims. So with that, can I please welcome Stephen?
All right, so this was work with Xiaoyu Wang, who's a research associate at QUT, and Ian Turner, and from Hyne Timber, Rebecca Cherry. Okay, so just give a bit of an overview of what we've done in this project. Okay, so it was really just, it was a scoping study to find out kind of what potential there is. Okay, Hyne Timber was kind enough to give us access to their production database, so we spent a bit of time kind of analyzing, understanding what was in that database, looking at sort of distributions of various properties related to their products. And one of the big things that we were trying to do was linking between different stages of the mill. So if you go on Hyne Timber's website, I don't know if people are familiar necessarily with their mill up at near Maryborough. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different stages in the mill, and the three stages we were focused on was the log merchandising system, the green mill, and the dry mill. So stems come into the log merchandiser, they get cut up into logs, they kind of get separated out into different categories, different classes, go through the green mill, get sawn into boards, and then get dried and go through the dry mill. And so I can't give too much information. You'll notice there's there's no information on any of the axes or anything like that. So it's their actual production data. But we looked at things like relationships between board stiffness, so modulus of elasticity, log acoustic wave velocity, location, like particular forests and things like that. We were able to identify that we haven't dug into this more. I think there's more work that can be done, that there appears to be certain clusters within the data. So this is looking at the relationship between a particular variable between the dry and green mill. Okay, and so it doesn't show it too well in this figure, and some other ones kind of looks a bit clearer. And so there was kind of an initial bit of work done on linking across the different stages. What would be really great, it would be if we could track individual pieces of timber all the way through the mill, but we're not at that stage yet. Okay, but we've kind of done an initial bit of work on linking those together. Another thing that we looked at was using some machine learning algorithms to try and predict particular properties. So this was using stem and log geometry information to try and predict the log acoustic wave velocity. We looked at two different algorithms, so random forest and XGBoost. The blue curve is kind of our prediction. The orange is the test data set. The XGBoost algorithm actually did reasonably well in trying to predict these distributions. And so that's predicting this acoustic wave velocity based just on kind of log diameters, stem lengths, things like that, and sweep and taper, that kind of thing. Okay, so this is kind of a proof of concept that, yeah, we might be able to predict some of these properties further down the line based on particular data. Okay, so one of the main outcomes of this work was really getting just a better understanding of their data set, and that initial linking to investigate the distributions between the different stages of the mill. Our initial work on the machine learning algorithms could help lead to better planning, better allocation at earlier stages. So this project it originally came out of trying to understand what fibers were coming into the mill to try and produce better like glulam beams and things like that, being able to optimize the production of those glulam beams. So being able to predict timber properties at an earlier stage could help allocate those fibers to various products. So some further work improved that linking across the mill. Okay, we did look at some prediction of individual board MOE from some of the log and stem information. That hasn't worked that well at this stage, and we think that's to do with that linking between the different stages in the mill. We saw that I didn't show any, but we've seen that there is some seasonality in some of the properties, and so whether we can incorporate some weather or climate data to try and understand that better. And there's quite a lot of data, so it's uncomfortably large to try and manage just on kind of a desktop or laptop computer. So trying to go to some cloud-based services as well to kind of improve the computation would be important, I think. All right, I'm getting the wrap up there, so I'm going to have to stop. So thank you very much.
Everyone, today I'm presenting project 59 on a Strongfloor system with which our partner in this project is VIRIDI Group. This project involved the Strongfloor system that you can see here. Is the main intention of the project is leveraging individual material properties to develop a structural floor system which has improved sustainability and serviceability and targets long spans and enable fast construction and prefabrication. So in this system, timber provides aesthetic look, as you can see in the bottom layer, and provides temporary formwork for wet concrete and protection to steel in terms of fire scenario. Steel section, as you can see, reduce the self-weight of the system and provides sufficient shear capacity, and concrete increases the stiffness and vibration performance. So VIRIDI Group has already done some background tests that we are working on them to further develop for flooring system for different scenarios happening in real life. So the project objective for project 59s are examining floor for strength and serviceability under hugging moments, human-induced vibration, point loads, and opening the floors, developing numerical model which can be used to conduct parameter study on effect of different parameters in real practice, and optimization of the shear connectors subjected to cyclic loading and humidity variation. And the last thing is developing design procedure to meet requirements of BCA for engineers to design them for real projects. So the project has a 4-work package, but because of the time limitation here, I'm not going into detail. I'm just summarizing some of the work packages which already have started and all progress. So there are some background test, 4-point testing on construction stage, as you can see on top right, which floor doesn't have hardened concrete and carries weight of construction material. And on the left, you can see the service stage, which concrete is poured and queued and floor undergoes occupancy loads. So there are some background tests provided by VIRIDI group. We are validating to develop a numerical model. These are results of a numerical model. We have verified load deflections for this flooring system, captured failure mode for different components of two type of the flooring system, which one is 120 millimeter high, deep, and the other one is 220 for working for different spans. Again, same thing happened for service condition for different span 4 meter and 8 meter, and two scenario of the flooring system. You can see in these slides failure mode for different components. This one is concrete. You can see let's say hair cracks at the beginning and major cracks while we are going to the higher level of the loads, failing and yielding of a steel profile and steel rebars within the system, and cracking of the timber in, let's say, ultimate capacity, which have captured this failure mode in our numerical models. The next work package engaged a fire test in Warrington Fire, which is already done. The all progress includes for this package developing a subroutine to capture delamination of the timber in bottom layers and predicting the temperature distribution. But next stage, we will couple this one with mechanical model to capture the deflections during fire scenario. So these are some of our progress so far. And the last work package is durability tests, which we have developed a testing rig to do small scale durabilities for cyclic humidity, as you can see on the left. And we are planning to do some variation and do some full scale water ingress for the flooring system, different scenarios within different defect, which we know in advance. So that was whole project.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here and estimate that this might be the first CRC project that could be entirely done in acronyms. So this is the NCHA ILL B4.0 CRC LHP. So this project's actually within a whisker of being signed. So this is a very high level overview of the kind of proposal and where we're starting from. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the context of the project to unpack some of those acronyms. So the National Centre for Healthy Ageing is a joint venture between Peninsula Health, Monash University and the community. It has been established to create a centralised hub for the innovation and transformation of healthcare practices. So the NCHA aims to create better integrated care models to promote health and wellbeing across the lifespan and drive improvements in the way people seek out and access care to ensure that they reflect and align with their values and needs. And you can see some of the streams on their website. So the Independent Living Lab will be a piece of research infrastructure within the simulated environment stream of the broader NCHA project. So the aim of the Living Lab is to support research activities that deliver the NCHA vision and aims by providing a simulated home environment for multidisciplinary research, testing and demonstration of integrated spatial and assistive technology and care models for healthy ageing. So she's only little, she's probably about 5 by 9, but hopefully she's going to pack quite a punch. So the Lighthouse project will focus on the design and construction of that Independent Living Lab to ensure that the vision and aims are supported and realised. And it's going to take advantage of the rare opportunity to support the objectives of the Living Lab through engaging in research that's aligned and connected with the procurement of the lab itself. This aligns with key research questions about how modular and prefabricated production can create new innovations in living environments for ageing. So the key industry partner for this project is Fleetwood, and there's quite a few research groups. So within MARTA, there's the Urban Lab, the Future Building Initiative, otherwise known as the FBI, Design Health Collab, and the School of Primary Allied Healthcare. And then stakeholders include the Monash University Buildings and Property Division and Peninsula Health Allied Health team. So it's quite a big team. So in the research, one of the first things that we're looking at doing is using co-design approaches to bring together all of those stakeholders to really develop the brief. So for such a small building, we kind of need to set up what they want to test, and then how that infrastructure can support that testing. So we're also going to be looking at designing, testing, refining and implementing the spatial arrangements for differing occupants, including the development of a kit of architectural and construction elements for adaptive, flexible and inclusive environments, and the integration of ambient, assisted living and other assisted technologies. We'll also be testing the integration of this design into the Fleetwood production and construction process via some prototyping. So the timeframe of the project is 12 to 15 months. The commencement, I've put March here. I mean, I don't want to jinx it. I made Sarah promise that presenting it today wouldn't be a jinx. But practical completion is April in 2024. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Rachel. And can I invite our speakers to come join the panel? We might try to flip this a little bit, though, from how we ran things in the first session. I feel like I made an attempt to ask a question of every single person on the panel, and then we had limited time for questions from the floor. I don't want to try to, throw out 5 questions in a row before I open it up to the audience. So I might just ask one, and I'm going to give it to Stuart in the first instance, and then we'll go to the floor if we can. But Stuart, I was just really curious with the digital asset program and the digital delivery, the digital builds. So that's been in play now, I guess, for 2 years. And I'm curious what, probably anecdotal at this point, but what sorts of impacts or uptake are you seeing? How is the market reacting to something like OPV introducing a new sort of framework like that, and how have you seen the market, I suppose, respond?
So essentially been about 1.5 years now. I think I would say it's challenging. In order to make any transformation, you need funding. So the first step is getting a business case written, and then obviously getting funding on the back of that. Then you've got to recruit the right people, develop a program and a roadmap to go from your current to future state. That's quite challenging for departments, and I would say out of the 8 or 9 departments, I think only 2, possibly 3 at the moment have actually got funding and got a transformation program in place. It'll just take time. We recognise that we might not see the immediate benefits of a policy now, but we will in 5-10 years time when we start to deliver data-rich digital assets. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's great. It's just to help understand the context of where that's sitting. Are there questions burning from the floor for any of our 5 presenters? Yes, on the back.
Is the mic on? Hello, everybody. I'm Richard, a PhD candidate at the University of Melbourne. My question was for, I suppose, George and Stuart as well a bit. It's around the prefabricated buildings and what challenge. I've heard discussion around the challenges to it being linked to financial. Sorry, around the change in when the costs are incurred. So when you get your traditional build, a lot of the costs aren't happening until just before the building's actually being handed over, whereas with prefab, you have a lot of those costs up front, and how that is being managed with the new projects and the new proposed projects, and how those challenges are being tackled. Yes, thank you.
You want me to go first? So I'll actually just presented this to another group. So what we're in OPV is looking at the contract framework. So what we have developed is 3, I remember I get this right, the 3 different contracting models. You have where you can engage the supplier to design, construct, and then install that component, which is what they call the supply model. We had a secondary one where you're actually, similar idea, but you're actually a subcontract, sorry, you're only engaged to design and install, sorry, to supply it. The install is done by the contractor, that traditional contractor. And then there was another model where you were just traditionally, the supplier is subcontracted to the traditional contractor. And those three models, the way we've written the clauses is to allow for that, the financial payments, dealing with things like warranties, and really trying to make that easier to facilitate the embedding of the supplier or that offsite supplier into that contract and process. You got anything like to add to that?
Yeah, I guess I've
You need to turn on that one.
I've worked on both ends. I've worked as a prefab manufacturer as well as a client. I think if the client wants it, there's a way to work through the funding model, because they do understand there's a lot more money spent up front, but it all happens a lot quicker down at the other end. So if the client wants it, and they can come up with a deal with, because every prefab manufacturer has a different process in terms of how much value add they do in the factory. So the cost curve is different depending on what system you're using. But I think that could be worked through. I think the banks are a little bit more difficult to get their heads around that funding model and the risk in terms of what happens, if the prefab supplier goes bust and all the, prefab components are stuck in a factory somewhere. But you can work through it all, but it is, I think from the bank side, it is more challenging. But there are ways to work through all that. I wouldn't say that's the biggest block at the moment, to be honest.
Yes, this question directed to Rachel. With your research project, have you considered using older clients that might like to have input into what their needs would be for this project?
Sorry.
Absolutely. I think one of the sort of areas that is a kind of delineation for the Lighthouse project is that we're really looking at the construction process as a kind of system and an architectural system, and then the independent living lab is going to be run by Peninsula Health and a lot of the health team, and a lot of that is getting people in to test that environment. And so it's interesting because it's quite hard because they really go hand in hand. So what are you going to test? What do you need to kind of have as infrastructure? So what kind of weight would the beams need to hold for a hoist and that kind of thing? And it's also really challenging because a lot of the kind of things that they want to test are technology, but also things like bathrooms, and bathrooms then have plumbing, so then you can't really move that around. So yeah, that's why we have to have that early co-design process to try and work out what's a system that can be the most adaptable to research exactly that.
Thank you for that. Other questions?
Sorry, it's not a question, it's a comment.
Yep, comments are good.
Hi, my name is Natalia. My background is in architecture and planning. So for prefabricated housing, it's normally your project timeline will be shorter because everything is prefabricated and then it should be assembled on a construction site. As you know, with manual labor construction, concrete maturity will take up to 20 days with each element, so it's kind of project time is much larger. But then the proportion, the percentage of prefabricated housing in Victoria is very small. To go to mass production, it should be over 18%, which is not there yet. So from finance point of view, no one aware of what's going on the market. And normally, if you treat it as a startup project, it will be likely a lot of public investment required to get it to the point when it's mass market and everyone aware of what's going on and it's kind of adopted by the community. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment. I guess I might ask George to provide some of your insight and experience around that sort of the chicken and egg question of how do we get the market to that kind of saturation point that we do need.
Yeah, I think the market, the traditional quantity surveyors don't really, they value the cost of every component and they add it all up. And there's a finance cost equation, there's a time cost equation, which isn't really always captured. And I think at the moment when you're seeing inflation rate at 7.8%, whatever that is, and you know, the cost of time is actually quite significant now. And your market could change by the time you kick off a project and by the time you hand it over. It could change significantly. So I think people need to understand also that in terms of risk mitigation, that shorter projects also manage that risk in market movement. So that never gets valued. But also, I agree in terms of you need for a factory to run efficiently, they need volume. And I think a lot of the issue with a lot of the prefab manufacturers, they'll do a one-off job and then they'll be, you know, there's a lot of overhead costs in terms of having a factory there not doing work. So it needs that amount of volume to get there. But the same way as I guess frame and truss industries start off as quite a cottage industry, and now it's becoming much more mainstream as all the builders are utilising a level of prefabrication through frame walls and truss system. I don't think anyone builds trusses conventionally anymore, so that's sort of moved to mainstream, and the same sort of thing is going to happen when you get the cost equation and value equation right.
Thank you for that. I might ask a question directed towards Alireza and Steve. I guess I'm just curious from your, maybe in either of your projects, just in terms of the feedback loop between what you did find in the research and how that's maybe impacting, I suppose, again, maybe it's a bit closed in terms of how much commercially you can say it, the research is impacting that, but I am curious around, some of the further impacts that both of you indicated. Like in Alireza's case, what is VIRIDI doing on the basis of the feedback that they are getting from your tests? Is that changing their product profile or their kind of, their market offering because they're figuring out, this needs a different kind of capability, so what do we need to change? Or similarly in some of the production, focused findings.
Mm-hmm. So for project 59 that we are working with the group, so it's working both ways. So we are providing feedback, they are changing the product specification based on feedback, and they came back to us with some durability concern that we are changing it with the direction of the research to address that concern that they have on site. So it goes both ways really. So in terms of the fire as well, so now they have concern about fire, we are investigating how it can just improve further, what detail they should use, and this sort of thing.
Yeah, so there's a feedback loop between the teams, And your experience, Steve?
There was quite a bit of back and forth between us and Rebecca in particular from Hyne. Some of it was us confirming things they suspected, but they're kind of just based on expert knowledge, but then actually seeing it in the data that what they thought was right. But then also, I guess, identifying things that they didn't expect and that would warrant a bit further investigation. So there was, again, quite regular feedback back and forth to make sure what we were doing made sense, but was also giving them something to think about and providing some value to them.
Yeah, very good. Other questions emerging from the audience? We've got about 5 more minutes before we're going to move to our next session. Oh yeah, Ria.
Thank you. Hello everyone, I'm Ria. I'm from Sumitomo Forestry. I'm working with George with the Lyons project. I just have a quick question to Alireza regarding that system, the 90mm timber at the bottom. What is the biggest contributing factor to the whole system? What is that timber doing?
So that timber, just combined with steel, is providing a foam wall for concrete. So literally they are not putting any prop, they are connecting to the main girders, and they pour the concrete and keep continuing going up. So it's more like a foam work in construction stage, and in terms of the services stage, it's provide a isolation layer for fire going to the steel, because when fire reaches the steel, the capacity is gone and flow comes down. So it's just more like a fire, providing almost 120 units fire rating for the flooring system. That's in the bottom line, and also in terms of aesthetic, if that's the advantage to have timber on the ceiling.
So, so essentially, it's eliminating the need for props, and then
yes, there's some sort of like a prefabrication.
Yes.
The modules are fabricated in factory, and they just carry inside, put it in place, full concrete, and keep concrete.
I see. So from that point of view, that the timber could be in different composition. It could be made thinner or
Not really thinner, because
efficient.
that's 120 minutes fire rating, 90 minutes almost
you
up
need
to
the
the
charring
edge.
for that.
Yes, the charring.
But certainly can consider some different timber types, hardwood, softwood.
For sure, for sure. For
Variations.
timing, I find I'm using Glulam.
Right.
Glulam.
Thank
But yeah, for sure, they can consider.
Great, thank you for that, Rio. I was actually told we don't have 5 more minutes. We're going to draw this to a close. So thank you for that as the last question. Can everyone please join me in thanking our panelists? And I just have one last item that I'd like to speak to you all about before I hand over. And that is a new project that we've been developing within the projects group with an external partner called Cruxes Innovation. Many of you who participated in a training session that we ran last year, which is about communicating impact beyond the sort of the research sphere. I think we had about 80 researchers from our different universities, as well as some of our industry partners attend that online workshop. So we talked with Cruxes about developing another round of training for 2023, and we identified the opportunity to maybe expand that and do something a bit more ambitious. And so I just wanted to really quickly give a snapshot of what this looks like by way of providing, I guess, an invitation to our industry partners that are in the room, so that they're aware that this is coming up, and it's something that we'd like to make you aware of. Also to the various researchers who are in the room today as well. Effectively, what Cruxes they run research training all the time. Basically, how to create greater levels of innovation and impact readiness through their various clientele. They run different programs of different sort of depths of participation, and what we're crafting with them is something which would be a kind of a multi-phase project that includes a kind of a base program, which we imagine all of our researchers would undertake, or as many as will subscribe to this as possible, and then a more substantial program, which they call their TREC program, which is a more kind of scaffolded and more in-depth process, and then combined with that, having a kind of a research piece, which also evaluates what is the impact and quality of the exercise that we're undertaking. And really the purpose of that is to try to elevate the capacity and ability for our industry partners to get the most out of the research project, and for our researchers to get the most out of working with industry. So it's kind of putting a lens around the CRC model to try to make it more effective and be able to turn that feedback around in the next 12 months, such that we can use that to inform future projects. So again, I've just kind of explained who this might involve. The base program, which I just mentioned, is a 15-hour program over 4 weeks. And then the TREC program, which is a bit more intensive. But what we're hoping to do is launch this project in a couple months' time. It would commence in June and July with some open forums, discussions, and workshops, which help to kind of refine and delimit the scope of the research project, followed by the kind of the base program, which would run up to and about coincide with our annual conference in September, and then have the TREC component that would end the year. And what we're imagining is that both researchers and industry partners would be involved in all of these aspects, and that industry partners could nominate whether they wanted to do the full track immersion or just function more like a kind of a mentor. So someone who, you're kind of, tapping in or dipping into the research training sessions, providing more kind of advisory sort of input. We're imagining that industry partners might want to have some members of your staff be more fully immersed in the program, and others that might have a lighter sort of touch. So that's just to give again a kind of a broad overview of what that looks like. Ultimately, as I said, it's about developing the capability of people that are involved. So, from an industry point of view, getting the most out of your investment in the research and the collaboration, and from the researchers knowing how to most effectively work with your industry partners. And ultimately, it's about really trying to elevate the impact readiness of the participants. And again, what can we as a CRC do to really help to ensure that we're maximizing the possibility of the research projects through providing this kind of support. So that's just a quick overview, and there will be a call for you to get involved. So be forewarned. With that, I want to hand over now to our partnerships director, Daniel Rex, who's going to canvass you for some of your current thoughts. Daniel.
Good afternoon. I think some of you will have seen many projects here today. I think we're looking at about 50 or 60. And as you wander around, you might wonder, where did this idea initially come from, and how did this idea form into a project? So to give some context, I was having a conversation the other day with an industry partner, and we were tossing around a few project ideas, traditional projects, and how do we focus in on the next idea, and who should we engage to get that project going? And during this conversation, it was suggested that, well, in our next gathering of all the industry partners and interested parties, why don't we ask everyone and find out what's on your minds and what other ideas might we want to consider as an ecosystem and as Building 4.0. So that's the context of this session, and also the purpose. So I'm going to run through a few questions. We've got about 25 minutes, and there's only 6 questions, but we're going to need some engagement and some participation from all of you. So if you'd kind of all get out your phones and go to menti.com. You can raise your hand if you're the first. What does the Australian building industry most need to change? You have 4 minutes. That was 14 already. Wow, we're off to a great start. Digitalisation of construction. Acceptance to technologies. Reduction in time between planning and delivery. A few votes for culture. Whole of life environmental assessment. Digital project management. Uptake of digital tools, gender inequality, skills, digitalisation. I'm seeing some themes come through here. You've got a couple more minutes. You can insert more than one answer. If you have a couple of ideas, feel free to put another one in. Innovation. Stop working under BAU model, another acronym. Poor design outcomes. Fit for purpose quality outcomes. Adopt a can-do attitude. I like that one. Sustainability. Incentives and processes to have zero carbon buildings as fast as possible. I think we'll all agree with that. Okay, just 30 more seconds to wrap that one up, and we'll look at moving on to the next question. Openness to change. Uptake of digital tools. Progressive on climate change challenges. Okay. Next question. For the next question, what is a new method, standard, technology, or way of doing business that you wish could be universally adopted throughout the building industry? If you could pick one thing that you wish we could all do, what would that be? Okay, platform. I think someone here is putting a lot of platforms in. Okay, we get the message there. Digitalization, BIM, blockchain. Full sentences are allowed as well. If you want to add to your single word. Way of managing information cohesively. What is a new standard, method, technology, or way of doing business that you wish could be universally adopted throughout the building industry? It's a big question. One thing. Okay. VIBUS. Standard and data open platforms. Interesting answer. That would be the tagging methodology, I think, for the facilities management crew in here. Agile environment, manufacturing-led construction. Got 1 more minute. If you want to put a second answer in, open standards, user-centered design. Looking good. Another vote for platform. Okay, 30 seconds. All right, let's go to the next question. So that's looking outwards at the industry. If you can take a moment to reflect now on the organization or business that you're in, reflecting on what you do every day, some of your challenges looking forward, what would you say are the top 3 challenges to growth that your company faces? What are the top 3 challenges to growth that your company faces? Okay. Digital literacy. So we have an education training challenge there. Time. Lack of integration. Cross-department collaboration. That's always a challenge, I think, in a lot of businesses. Skilled labor, that's picking up on the training theme again. Cultural change. So if you could solve 1 or 2 of these challenges, that might make an impact on your company's growth. Race to the bottom line, procurement, disrupted supply chains dragging the chain. Supply chain challenges. Lack of skilled people, training again. See a theme there. Digital literacy, it's a training issue again. Gender equality, we saw that in one of the other answers. That's great to see again. Less utilization of technologies. Is that, whoever put that in, is that you want to see less utilization or there is not enough utilization? If you want to qualify that for us, that'd be great. Skilled workers, research funding. You got 1 more minute on this question. Supply chains again, digital literacy again. Obtaining efficient finance. Interesting. Acceptance of change. Okay, 30 seconds. Great, thanks everybody. We'll move to the next question, please. Okay, so getting very specific, if you were just to focus in on technology, it could be technology in terms of IT or robotics or hardware or systems or however it is you want to interpret technology. So putting all the other issues aside, what are the top 2 technological challenges your company faces? If you could solve 1 or 2 technological challenges inside your business, whether it be technology which impacts your external facing interactions or technology which impacts your internal operations. Data management, fully integrated BIM, PLM understanding. There is no on-site project management tool. That's interesting. CRM integration across departments. Too many platforms, so therefore some interoperable issues. So maybe there's some consolidation that's needed. Money. there. Expensive software that goes with that. Ability for staff to adapt to change. Okay, BIM cost models. Integration of platforms, that's another integration challenge. Cybersecurity, software compatibility between versions. These are great. Thanks. Keep them coming in for another minute. Tech seen as a solution, not a tool. So maybe the way we approach technology. Gathering data, cybersecurity again, access to training. Okay, just going to wind that one up and move on to the next one. So we had a few comments on supply chains and answers to a few of those other questions. So homing in on that supply chain area, what is a key challenge in your supply chain, which with the right amount of capital and focus could probably be solved by collaborative innovation? What is a key challenge in your supply chain, which with the right amount of capital and focus could probably be solved by collaborative innovation? This one might require a bit more thought. Embodied carbon accounting. I think we all agree we're going to need to do that. Supply chain risk, quality control, build times using more finished prefabrication, integrating life cycle assessment, ethical source tracing, real-time feedback, supplier capacity. I think that's the second one I saw on supplier capacity. The use of rail network in supply chains is more sustainable. Interesting point. Passing digital information through the supply chain in an integrated manner, so more supply chain integration for our industry. Precise cost estimation up front. Quality assurance and reliance. I'm going to give us 1 more minute for this question. What is a key challenge in your supply chain, which with the right amount of capital and focus would probably be solved by collaborative innovation? More integration, more education. Reliability of what? Whoever put that in. Reliability of supplier, integration, price. All right, let's move to the next question. This is the last question for this session, and we would love to have your ideas on what you would like us to go and have a think about putting collaborative partnerships and teams and projects together to go and solve and work on. So the question here is, what new project or challenge would you most like the Building 4.0 CRC to help bring multiple industry companies together to work on? The more specific you can be, the better. So if you can give us a couple of sentences, that would be amazing. If it's a word, we'll still take it. So culture, if someone could give us a bit more depth around that, is there a particular question which is culture related that you would like to pose for a project? Sometimes it's worth thinking about what's the problem statement, what's the actual question we're searching for an answer to. Cost-effective implementation of panelized house building for mainstream housing with high thermal performance and low embodied carbon. Thank you for that one. Foamed concrete and I'm in suspense. What's the rest of the sentence? Open source platform design. Whole of life analysis. Affordable housing provision. Optimizing and integrating building services installation to offsite construction, focused on what goes in a building in conjunction to what it's made of? That's very specific. Thank you. Risk mitigation on legal contracts for small builders down the chain. Real knowledge sharing report to share errors. If someone could say what reports, that would be super helpful. Feel free to put it in again. Standard for digital assets, e.g. BIM, building asset data, maintenance service types, open source, digital twin asset, perhaps underpinned by blockchain. So can we use blockchain in BIM and asset management? All right, I'm going to give us 1 more minute on this. What new project or challenge would you like the CRC to work on and to bring people together to focus and solve for? Accelerating construction times, lean thinking, education for constructors and the designers, complex residential apartment development, portal for post-construction information and maintenance management. 30 more seconds.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was an excellent idea and very well executed. That's given us a lot of data for our organisation to move forwards with. And we really probably don't have enough opportunities like this to just get this kind of really, really direct feedback from the consortium. So thanks so much for that. Yeah, look, what a day, what a turnout. Absolutely fantastic to see so many people here. When we saw the number of RSVPs coming in for this event, we were completely blown away. It almost rivaled our annual conference, which I think is a testimony to the interest that the CRC and our consortium has raised, hopefully raising the profile around building innovation in this country and hopefully soon abroad. Look, I just want to kind of go back in time a little bit and reiterate a couple of the things that we're constantly talking about internally within the team, because I think it is good preparation for the year that's to come. Yeah, good. One of the things that we talk about quite a bit internally is the right mindset, right? To do the kind of work that we all need to do. And I think it's been a mindset that we've seen on display here. I think it's the mindset that we saw the previous task undertaken within, and that is that an innovation mindset. And a CRC is really the best possible example of this sort of innovation mindset. And what does that really mean? Well, it means that we're all in the business of change. It means that we're absolutely not in the business of keeping things the same. And I think sometimes that means that you have to rattle the cage a little bit. You have to push boundaries a little bit. You have to push people outside of our traditional comfort zone. And no doubt across the coming year, there will come a time, no doubt, whether you're a researcher, industry partner, involved in education, whatever part of our ecosystem you're from, that there will be a demand put on you that will take you outside of your comfort zone. And I think it's really important at that time to not look at that as though it's some kind of personal issue. We're here to make innovation. We're here to make change, right? And that means we all need to move, yeah? All of us need to move, and we need to move from where we are now into somewhere else into the future. So it's just a little reminder that that's what we're here for. We're not here to walk out of every meeting with a smile on our face necessarily. If we can do that and innovate, great, not against it, but that's not the purpose of it. So I want to go back as well into history, into our website. I mentioned it before, it's a wonderful repository of a whole bunch of information, but I just wanted to zoom in on this document in particular, which is one of the first diagrams that our team put together. And I was reminded today of the importance of this early diagram, because when we started this CRC, the conventional wisdom would be that you need to focus really, really neatly and narrowly on some problem that you can guarantee you're going to change. In some cases, the feedback we got around this diagram in particular, that was impossibly broad, right? but it's one of the diagrams that we repeatedly use when we're trying to describe what's unique about this CRC, and that it is a very, very holistic approach. And what I loved about the two sessions that I saw up on the stage today is just how broad they are. We have people right at the beginning of the supply chain trying to understand how we optimize and get every last fiber out of a tree trunk. And then on the other hand, we've got people making really advanced systems to go into buildings that make them faster, better, and of higher quality, right? We're looking at the standards, right? We're looking at new business models. We're looking at new ways of delivering buildings into areas that typically take years and have a really poor quality of service attached to them. So we're looking at all of these problems. And I think that I think is a real point of difference in this CRC. And again, it's just something I want to remind everyone of, because I think it's a really important thing. And we did this not just because we couldn't decide what to focus on. We did this out of the conviction that we think that if we want to make a serious change in this industry, we have to change a lot of these things at once. It's not an option. It's not an option to pick one slice of that cake and say, tick, we've done our job because we've improved governance in the construction industry, as important as that thing would be, because all of these things are interlinked. The other big lesson for me moving forward, I guess, is how central this concept of the Lighthouse Project has become. Today we heard two really interesting presentations, one from an industry partner, one from a research partner, Lighthouse Project 6, and Lighthouse Project 3. Look, Lighthouse projects are going to become a really central part of what we do. And I think when we're meeting again this time next year, you're hopefully going to see a couple of really tangible examples of what we've been up to on the page. When we set up the CRC, we thought to ourselves, what could we do in building that any other sector could not do? Right? We look at health, we look at mining, we look at agriculture, we look at medical devices. It's pretty obvious, the answer to my somewhat feeble rhetoric question. We can make buildings, right? And not only can we do it, but it's super important for the impact and innovation that we're trying to achieve, because it's really the only trusted way that people in our industry really believe and adopt what they see. They don't trust reports, as great as reports are. They want to see it, feel it, burn it, as we've seen today. Knock it down, build it up again, and do it over and over again. That's how our industry learns, right? That's one of the major ways it learns. It's not the only way. So again, a challenge out to everyone here. We've got 10 or so Lighthouse projects in the pipeline. What's your Lighthouse project? Yeah, and the way that we think about Lighthouse projects is pretty simple, is that these are projects that you are doing irrespective of us, right? You would do this project anyway. What the CRC and this group can offer into that process is lending some research and development capacity behind that initiative, right? We can't fund whole buildings, right? We don't have enough money for that, and that's not the right thing for us to be doing with that money. But what we can do is lend a shoulder and get some things over the line. I guess tip the balance in favor of innovation rather than against innovation in the building industry, which is a huge offset to achieve. So, open question to you. What is your Lighthouse project? Couple of final points, a couple of other challenges that have become clear to me across the course of the day is that, of course, I mean, I'm sort of stunned, and I've been involved in the CRC since the very beginning, but I'm just stunned by how fast we're going now, right? In the beginning, it was really hard with COVID and everything like that. Now we're going really fast, right? So, but we need to go faster still. And we need your help to do that. So we need, as Chris has been outlining across the day as well in his comments, we need the new projects. We need those Lighthouse projects, but we also need your new projects. And we want to make those projects bigger, right? Because we think it was the appropriate thing to do at the beginning of the CRC to have small scoping style projects. And you've seen many of those on the boards and up on stage today. But now we want to start to push that innovation envelope. Right? That shouldn't be a surprise to any of you. And again, I'll come back to my my first comment. We're an innovation outfit. We make change. That's what we're here to do. The final thing is really just to reiterate one of the things that Chris said, which is we are in conversation with so many people, right? Now that the heavy veil of COVID has lifted, in fact, all I do, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for Daniel as well, is we're out there every week talking to the industry, trying to find new collaborations, trying to find new projects. We're talking to 3 state governments simultaneously, trying to find opportunities for you and also for them and also for other parties. So again, a question back to you all today, which is that if you have partners, projects, ideas, collaborators, bring them to us because we would love to work with them. And Daniel, as I said, our partnerships director is working really hard on this. I'm working really hard on this, but it would be very helpful to have your collective knowledge and networks available to us as well. So please feel free to reach out and make suggestions of that. And finally, as this slide suggests, I want to thank all of you, and in particular, all of our partners, which is probably about 90% of the people in the room today. You are the CRC, it is your CRC, and we're here to work together on this. And I'm extremely proud to be associated with such a remarkable group of people like yourself. And I'm really looking forward to what we can achieve in 2023 and beyond. So thank you so much for coming along today.